What if everything you thought made you strong was actually making you fragile? What if real strength wasn't about having power, control, or even certainty, but about knowing who you are when the ground beneath you disappears? We live in a world that values toughness, hustle, image, but Stoic wisdom, carved out over 2,000 years ago, offers us a different kind of strength. Not the kind that shouts, not the kind that dominates, but the kind that endures quietly, that stays grounded when chaos hits, and that doesn't need to be seen to be real. This isn't just philosophy, it's survival. It's clarity, it's peace when everything else falls apart. In this series, we'll explore 10 principles, 10 powerful reminders that will help you build a life not just of success, but of resilience, of integrity, of unbreakable depth. Let's begin. 1. Know what you can control and release the rest. So much of our suffering doesn't come from what happens to us, but from our resistance to it. We replay the same mistake over and over in our minds. We worry endlessly about things we cannot predict or influence. We burn energy trying to change people who refuse to change themselves. And yet, none of these things are truly ours to control. The Stoics understood this deeply. At the heart of their philosophy was one timeless idea. Some things are within our power, and some things are not. Our thoughts, our actions, our responses, these belong to us. But the weather, the past, the opinions of others, the randomness of fortune, these do not. Epictetus said it plainly. Happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within our control, and some things are not. It sounds simple, but in practice, it demands incredible honesty. It means you stop trying to rewrite the past. You stop trying to force people to see your worth. You stop letting your emotions be controlled by someone else's behavior. Instead, you turn inward. You begin to ask, what is mine to manage right now? And then you do that, with clarity and without complaint. This way of thinking is not passive. It doesn't mean surrendering your life to fate or being indifferent to outcomes. It means recognizing where your power truly lies and refusing to waste it elsewhere. When you stop chasing control over the uncontrollable, you reclaim a kind of calm that is hard to shake. You're no longer constantly reacting. You're choosing. You're no longer panicked when life shifts. You adjust. You're no longer afraid of uncertainty. You become rooted in your response, not the result. To live this way is to conserve your energy for what truly matters. It's to step out of the exhausting loop of blame, overthinking, and fear. It's to live lighter, more present, and more in tune with the moment. Because when you stop gripping everything tightly, you begin to see clearly what's actually yours to hold. Reflection. Tonight, take a few moments to sit with this question. What am I trying to control that was never mine to begin with? Let it go not with bitterness, but with wisdom. Your peace doesn't come from managing every outcome. It comes from mastering your response. That's where your freedom lives. 2. Build a morning routine that grounds you. The way you begin your morning shapes the rhythm of your entire day. It's not just about productivity. It's about presence. The Stoics believe that how you greet the day reflects how you greet life itself. In a world that constantly pulls us into urgency, distraction, and reaction, creating a steady, intentional morning routine is a radical act of self-respect. Marcus Aurelius began each morning reminding himself that the world would test him. He prepared not with anxiety, but with clarity. He didn't look at his scrolls to check who liked him or feared missing out on news. He turned inward. He wrote to himself. He reminded his soul of what truly matters. That practice wasn't about discipline for discipline's sake. It was about returning to who he was before the world tried to make him forget. Your morning routine doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't need to be perfect. What matters is that it is yours, a space to reconnect, to become aware of your thoughts before they become reactions, a time to breathe before being pulled into the noise. For some, it might be journaling. writing a few words to anchor the mind. For others, it may be sitting in stillness or reading a short passage of timeless wisdom. Maybe it's just making your bed with intention, drinking your water slowly, standing outside for a few moments and watching the sky. The point is not the ritual. The point is the return. Returning to your values, returning to your breath, returning to the present moment. This is how you become a steady person in an unstable world. Not by reacting to the world's chaos first thing in the morning, but by meeting the day with quiet strength. The Stoics didn't begin their mornings trying to win the day. They began by remembering what was within their control and what wasn't. They began with humility, not pressure, with gratitude, not craving. And through that daily rhythm, they cultivated an inner compass that didn't waver, no matter what the day brought. Because when you don't own your morning, the world will. It will hand you its urgency, its opinions, its noise. But when you do own your morning, you take back something sacred, your attention, and your attention is your life. Reflection. Before tomorrow arrives, ask yourself this: what would it look like to begin my day with clarity instead of chaos? Choose just one small ritual, something gentle, something honest, and begin there. Not to fix your life in one morning, but to remember that you are allowed to start from peace, not pressure, because how you greet the day is how you begin to greet yourself. 3. Train your mind to respond, not react. There's a moment, often small, nearly invisible, between what happens to us and how we choose to respond. It's in that space where our power lives. Most people miss it. Something triggers them, and they react instantly. Words fly. Emotions spike. Decisions are made out of anger, fear, or insecurity. And later, they regret it. But the Stoics saw that moment clearly. They taught that we are not disturbed by events themselves, but by the judgments we attach to them. In other words, life doesn't control your peace. You do. To respond instead of react is to pause, to breathe, to create space between stimulus and response. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that people would offend him, circumstances would challenge him, and emotions would rise. But he also reminded himself that he alone controlled how he responded. You have power over your mind, he wrote, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Reacting is easy. It's automatic. But responding is deliberate. It requires awareness. It requires slowing down when everything in you wants to speed up. It means holding back the sharp reply, the impulsive decision, the destructive urge, and asking instead, is this who I want to be? Stoic training wasn't about suppressing emotion. It was about transforming it. Anger into clarity, fear into courage, pain into presence. This isn't something that happens once. It's a discipline, a lifelong practice, a sharpening of the mind until it becomes still enough to choose, even in moments of chaos. And here's the paradox. The more you train yourself to respond instead of react, the less power others have over you. You stop being a puppet of emotion. You stop being pushed and pulled by every criticism, every insult, every inconvenience. You stand rooted, anchored in principle, not circumstance. This isn't coldness. It's clarity. It's strength wrapped in calm. It's the quiet knowing that your peace is too valuable to hand over to whatever or whoever decides to push your buttons today. You become a guardian of your own mind, and in doing so, you create a life that isn't just reactive, but intentional. A life shaped not by external chaos, but by internal order. Reflection. Tonight, take 5 minutes to replay one moment from today where you reacted too quickly. Then ask yourself, what would it have looked like if I had responded instead? There's no shame in reacting, but there is growth in learning and power in choosing better, one pause at a time. Because peace isn't found in a life without problems, but in a mind trained not to be ruled by them. 4. Embrace pain as a pathway, not a punishment. Pain is not your enemy. Discomfort is not a sign that something has gone wrong. And suffering, though often heavy, is not always a punishment. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed that pain, when embraced wisely, could become a pathway to inner strength, resilience, and wisdom. Seneca once wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." To the Stoic, pain is not something to be avoided at all costs. Instead, it is something to be understood, something to be examined with courage, not fear. In modern life, we are conditioned to believe that pain must be eliminated immediately. We numb it, distract from it, medicate it, and escape it. But when we flee from pain without listening to it, we rob ourselves of its deeper message. Because pain, emotional or physical, often signals growth. It shows us where we've grown too comfortable, where we've become too rigid, or where we've been ignoring something important for too long. When you view pain as a punishment, you fall into resentment. You ask, why me? But when you view it as a teacher, you ask, what is this revealing to me? There is strength in reframing your suffering. The Stoics didn't pretend they didn't hurt. Marcus Aurelius struggled with illness and betrayal. Epictetus lived most of his life with a crippled leg from years of slavery. And yet, they turned their pain into something noble. Not by erasing it, but by integrating it. They accepted their pain without surrendering to it. This doesn't mean you must enjoy your suffering. It means you walk through it with awareness. You stop asking for life to be easier and start asking to be stronger. You stop fighting reality and begin cooperating with it, molding yourself to meet it head on. Pain humbles you. It sharpens your values. It strips away illusion. It teaches you what truly matters and what never did. In that sense, it becomes a purifier, not a punishment. And eventually, you'll look back on moments you thought would break you, and you'll see they were building you instead. Not in loud, glorious transformation, but in quiet inner reinforcement. The kind that can't be faked. The kind that gives you real presence. 5. Detach your worth from external validation. How many of your choices, today, this week, this year, have been shaped by what others might think of you? How many times have you felt your mood rise or fall based on approval, likes, applause, or someone else's silence? Without even realizing it, most people hand over their self-worth to the shifting winds of public opinion. And when you do that, you become a prisoner. Not of bars, but of perception. The Stoics warned us about this centuries ago. They taught that the value of a person does not come from praise, status, or reputation. It comes from living in alignment with virtue, with wisdom, courage, self-discipline, and justice. These are the things that cannot be taken from you. And because they are internal, they must also be chosen by you, every day. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Why? Because the path of growth and integrity often looks strange to those who are still chasing approval. If you live by what others think, you will change yourself endlessly just to be liked, polishing your image while losing your center. There's nothing wrong with recognition. There's nothing wrong with being appreciated. But when your self-worth is dependent on it, you are always at risk. One insult, one rejection, one indifferent glance, and your whole identity begins to shake. The Stoic doesn't live this way. The Stoic trains the mind to be rooted in what is, not in how it is received. This kind of detachment doesn't make you arrogant. It makes you free. You begin to make decisions based on principle, not popularity. You say what is true, not what is convenient. You act with conviction, not calculation. And that is how inner strength is built, not through applause, but through quiet clarity. Even in today's world of constant validation seeking, followers, views, feedback, the question remains, are you living to be seen Or are you living to be centered? You won't find your worth in the eyes of the crowd. You'll find it in the mirror, when you can look yourself in the eye and know you're living honestly, regardless of who's watching. Reflection. Ask yourself, just before bed tonight, if no one ever praised me for what I do, would I still do it? That question will tell you everything about where your self-worth truly lives. And if the answer is no, then it's time, not to chase more attention, but to return to your values. Because when your worth comes from within, no one can give it, and no one can take it away. 6. Practice stillness in the midst of chaos. The world doesn't slow down. News breaks, deadlines pile up, opinions flood in, notifications interrupt every quiet moment. Life moves fast, and the pressure to keep up can feel overwhelming. In the midst of this storm, most people live in constant motion, not just physically, but mentally. Their thoughts spin, their emotions spike, their energy gets scattered across 1,000 worries, none of them fully held. But the Stoics believed in something different. Stillness. Not the absence of noise, but the presence of composure. A quiet, grounded strength that allows you to remain centered even while the world around you is spinning. Marcus Aurelius led an empire through war, betrayal, and plague. Yet every morning, he wrote to himself, not to control the world, but to control his own mind. He reminded himself, nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul. Stillness, in this sense, is not escape. It's access to a deeper place within you that doesn't panic, doesn't rush, and doesn't get pulled by every current. It's a choice, a discipline, and like all Stoic practices, it takes effort. Stillness is saying no to the impulse to react immediately. Stillness is taking a deep breath when your anger rises. Stillness is pausing to observe your thoughts instead of being ruled by them. It's not apathy, it's mastery. In moments of chaos, most people reach outward for distraction, for noise, for something to numb the discomfort. The Stoic reaches inward. They ask, what part of this is truly mine to carry? And in doing so, they preserve their energy. They protect their focus. They move with intention, not impulse. You don't have to live in a quiet monastery to be still. You can practice stillness while walking down a crowded street, while sitting in a noisy cafe, while facing a stressful meeting. Stillness is not about your surroundings, it's about your stance. And in that inner calm, you become more powerful than the chaos. Not because you've escaped it, but because you've learned not to let it control you. Reflection. Before the day ends, ask yourself, where in my life am I being pulled in too many directions? Then choose one small space to reclaim. Maybe it's 5 minutes in silence before the world wakes. Maybe it's one walk without your phone. Maybe it's simply observing your breath when stress rises. Stillness isn't a luxury, it's a responsibility. Because only when your mind is quiet can your wisdom speak. 7. Choose principles over popularity. At some point in life, everyone stands at a crossroads. The path of comfort or the path of conviction. One promises quick acceptance, applause, and ease. The other promises nothing except alignment with your deeper values. The Stoics taught us without hesitation to choose the second path because they knew popularity is fleeting, but principle is enduring. It's easy to go along with the crowd, to bend your truth a little so people like you more, to laugh at things that don't sit right with your soul, to stay quiet when your voice could make a difference. But every time you do that, you chip away at something sacred inside of you, your integrity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Simple, direct, and in many ways revolutionary, because we live in a world where image often outweighs substance, where fitting in seems safer than standing up, where popularity measured in numbers, followers, or approval, is mistaken for real worth. The Stoics sees through that illusion. They understand that what is right will not always be well received, and what is wise may not always be fashionable. But they choose it anyway, because to the Stoic, the internal standard matters more than the external reward. Choosing principles over popularity means living by your own code, not one imposed by trends or applause. It means doing what you believe is just, even when no one notices. It means saying no to shortcuts that violate your ethics, and yes to the difficult conversations that protect your truth. You might lose people. You might face judgment. You might feel alone, but you will be free. And that freedom is more valuable than any praise this world can offer. This kind of life won't always be glamorous, but it will be solid, quiet, steady. A life you can respect when you're alone with yourself. A life that doesn't crumble when the spotlight fades, because it was never built for the crowd. It was built for the soul. Reflection. Ask yourself tonight, what am I sacrificing just to be accepted? And more importantly, is it worth it? Let your principles be your compass, not your popularity. Because in the end, the world forgets applause, but you will remember the times you betrayed or honored yourself. 8. Cultivate inner strength through daily discipline. Strength is not something you're born with. It's not something you find in a crisis or summon in a moment of need. True strength, the kind that endures, that remains calm when everything else is shaking, is cultivated, slowly, quietly, through the ordinary, often unglamorous practice of daily discipline. The Stoics knew this. They didn't wait for life to get easier. They trained for it to get harder. They practiced simplicity when comfort was available. They practiced silence when they could have shouted. They practiced moderation even when abundance was within reach. Why? Because they understood that if you don't train your mind and habits daily, life will train them for you, and not always kindly. Seneca said, "We must undergo a hard winter training and not rush into things for which we haven't prepared." He wasn't talking about physical battles. He was talking about emotional ones, spiritual ones, the trials of heartbreak, failure, rejection, grief, uncertainty. These moments don't ask for instant courage. They ask for a character that's been built day by day, one choice at a time. Discipline is not about punishment. It's about liberation. The person who can rise early, control their impulses, delay gratification, stay consistent. This is the person who is free. Free from being ruled by urges. Free from regret. Free from the chaos of an undisciplined life. And it doesn't require dramatic change. It begins small. One decision to wake up without hitting snooze. One meal eaten with mindfulness instead of distraction. One task completed with full presence. One temptation resisted because your long-term values matter more than short-term ease. Day by day, these choices become character. They become a kind of muscle memory for the soul. When challenges come, and they always do, you don't fall apart. You don't panic, because you've trained for this. You've prepared your mind to endure, to stay grounded, to respond with clarity instead of collapse. This is the kind of strength that doesn't shout. It doesn't flex. It doesn't need to be seen. But when the storm comes, it's there, quiet, steady, unshakable. Reflection. Ask yourself before bed, what small act of discipline did I practice today? And if the answer is none, don't criticize yourself. Start tomorrow. One thing, one small thing. Because strength isn't built in big heroic moments. It's built in the invisible ones, when no one is watching, but you choose excellence anyway. 9. Face discomfort instead of escaping it. Discomfort has a purpose. It signals growth. It points toward the edge of your current limitations. And yet, so often, we run from it. We numb it with distraction. We avoid it with busyness. We pretend it doesn't exist by retreating into comfort zones that shrink our lives, one decision at a time. The Stoics saw discomfort not as something to be escaped, but something to be entered, deliberately, mindfully, and with courage. Epictetus, born into slavery, understood that we cannot control what life gives us, but we can control how we meet it. He believed that discomfort was not an enemy, but a training ground, and he taught that avoiding discomfort is the fastest way to stay weak. In the modern world, escape is everywhere. Endless scrolling, shallow entertainment, addictive pleasures, false urgency. These things give us the illusion of relief, but underneath, they cost us presence, resilience, and depth. Every time we avoid discomfort, we reinforce the idea that we're not strong enough to face it. But each time we turn toward it, even briefly, we remind ourselves, I can sit with this, I can hold this, I can walk through this. It doesn't mean we enjoy the pain. It means we stop fearing it. Facing discomfort doesn't require heroic effort. It starts small. Sitting with a difficult emotion instead of covering it with noise. Having a hard conversation instead of avoiding the truth. Waking up early when your mind begs for more sleep. Saying no to instant pleasure because you're aiming for something greater. Each time you do that, you grow a little stronger, a little braver. And with that, your capacity expands. Because discomfort is not there to break you. It's there to build you. It refines your priorities. It tests your patience. It tempers your strength. And if you let it, it will make you more alive than any comfortable numbness ever could. The Stoic doesn't seek pain, but they don't run from it either. They understand that avoiding life's discomforts is the same as avoiding life's lessons. Reflection: ask yourself tonight, what discomfort have I been avoiding lately? Then choose, just once, not to run, not to numb, but to lean in, even just an inch. Growth begins where your comfort ends, and the life you truly want, the one with meaning, depth, and peace, is on the other side of what you're afraid to feel. 10. Live each day as if it's your final one, with presence, not fear. We all know life is short, but most of us don't live like we believe it. We postpone what matters. We rush through our days. We assume we'll have time, later, to say what we need to say, to do what we want to do, to live how we were meant to live. But the Stoics remind us, with an uncomfortable but necessary truth, you might not get later. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This wasn't meant to scare. It was meant to wake us. To live each day as if it were your last doesn't mean abandoning your responsibilities or chasing wild indulgences. It means being present. It means showing up fully, not halfway. It means treating the people you love as if you might not get another chance. It means choosing your values, your voice, your path, even when it's hard. Because wasting time pretending isn't living at all. The fear of death is universal. But the Stoics flipped that fear. Instead of letting it paralyze them, they used it as a compass. They called this memento mori, a reminder of death that becomes a tool for choosing life. Think about how you'd treat this moment, this morning, this conversation, if you knew it could be your last. You wouldn't be so reactive. You wouldn't hold grudges. You wouldn't scroll past meaning. You wouldn't rush through your time here like it's infinite. You'd savor. You'd speak with honesty. You'd love without delay. You'd live with intention. The truth is, none of us knows how much time we have left. But that uncertainty isn't a curse. It's a gift. It strips away the illusion of forever. It focuses the mind. It silences the trivial. And it clarifies what truly matters. Because in the end, the goal isn't to live forever. It's to live so well that even one more day feels like enough. Reflection. Tonight, ask yourself, If today was the last page in the book of my life, would I be proud of how I lived it? If the answer is no, don't be afraid. Be honest, then start again tomorrow. Not in fear of death, but in celebration of life. Strength isn't something you're born with. It's something you choose, moment by moment, breath by breath. In a noisy world that pulls you in 1,000 directions, choose to come back to what matters. Not what's loudest, not what's most popular, but what's most real. You now have the tools, 10 timeless practices. But knowing isn't enough. You must live them. So pause before your next scroll. Breathe before your next reaction. And ask yourself, what would the strongest version of me do today? If this message spoke to something deep inside you, consider sharing it with someone who needs to hear it too. And if you'd like more guides like this, more reminders to live with clarity, peace, and quiet power, don't forget to follow this channel. Because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs more people who are unshakably awake.